Alice was walking home after work. It was very cold outside. The icy wind, piercing to the bones, made her feel alive. She felt like everything in life was getting worse. Nothing was working out, everything seemed to be falling apart. It was as if someone behind her back was constantly plotting, and she couldn't even figure out who it was. "Alice, let me give you a ride," her colleague said, pulling up to the sidewalk. Alice gladly agreed. It was terribly cold outside, and walking a long distance was not an option. "Thanks, I thought I'd freeze to death on the way home." "It's unbelievably cold today. Can't believe winter is supposed to be over," Alice said. "Yeah, it's freezing. They said there's a storm warning because of wet snow. That's probably why the boss let us go an hour early, so we could make it home safely." "It feels like we're stuck in this winter forever," her colleague remarked. Alice perfectly understood what her colleague was talking about. Both of them were in unhappy marriages, both knew it was temporary. For now, they had to endure their husbands, but someday it would end. They didn't talk about it yet, they understood each other without words. Society's judgment held them back. One feared her mother's disapproval, and the other knew she had nowhere to go if she left her husband. Both kept silent about it. As the car approached Alice's home, she thanked her friend once again. "Alice, someday this will end," her colleague said. A sad smile appeared on her face. "I hope so too," Alice replied. She got out of the car, and the icy wind hit her face. Wet snow, by now heavily falling, covered her face. She covered her face with her hands and quickly reached the entrance. The asphalt had become slippery. She opened the entrance door, stepped inside, and felt a bit relieved. She went up to her apartment, took off her outerwear, hung it by the heater, and went straight to the bathroom. She filled the bathtub with hot water. When she lay in the hot water, she felt warmth spreading through her for the first time since leaving the office. She felt like her life was falling apart, and she couldn't do anything about it. Her head ached. She got out of the bath when she was thoroughly warmed. The scent of roses and lavender lingered on her. Everything seemed a bit less noticeable, as if her life's problems had diminished. If only it were true. She went to the kitchen and started preparing dinner. It was like before. She turned on the TV, occasionally distracted by a show. Was this the life she wanted? Was this her dream? What terrible thing happened in her life that made her decide to get married? She didn't have answers to these questions. It was as if there was a completely different woman before marriage. She was afraid to realize what awaited her in the future if she didn't change anything. "And why does it smell burnt?" her husband asked as soon as he entered the kitchen. He had just come from outside, still wearing a hat covered in snow. "Will you ever learn to cook?" he added. She didn't reply. She knew she was a good cook, but he always found reasons to belittle her, to mock her, or to offend her. The rest of her didn't seem to interest him. He just wanted to taunt her, seemingly deriving pleasure from it. He sat at the table, and she placed the food in front of him. He ate it with pleasure and then made a disgusted face. "Listen, I was thinking, maybe you'll give me a share of the apartment," he asked. "We live together, and I don't understand why I'm still not registered here. Seriously. What if you leave me with nothing? What if you decide to divorce, and I get nothing?" "Well, traditionally, it's the man's responsibility to provide housing for the woman. Why should I allocate shares in an apartment you didn't contribute to buying?" she calmly asked, sitting down beside him. He didn't reply. It was evident how angry he became, and she felt that his anger would soon overflow. She didn't want to provoke him, but she wasn't going to give him a part of the apartment. She inherited it, invested her own money, and even paid for repairs. Even if something broke, she called a repairman and paid for it herself. He had no right to demand a share. Apparently, he understood this, and now he was squirming like a snake in a frying pan. She couldn't understand why he talked more about divorce lately. But suddenly, it felt so good when she imagined that the divorce might happen. That evening, he didn't speak to her anymore. He sulked openly, tilted his head, remained silent, played with his phone, and deliberately watched movies she didn't like. She felt pressure from him, but today it wasn't as important to her. She sensed that she was losing her dependence on him. Most likely, in a few months, when she could let go of her attachment to him, she could file for divorce herself. Yes, people would judge her. She would constantly hear that at her age, she should have been married. But she was no longer afraid of that. Let them talk, let them gossip behind her back, it was no longer her concern. When he fell asleep sitting on the couch, awkwardly slumping on a pillow, she found it disgusting to look at him. She went to the kitchen and only then noticed that he had left his phone there. She automatically picked it up and suddenly saw that he had a love affair text conversation. When she realized he was cheating on her, she felt even more repulsed by his presence in her apartment. She wanted to confront him right away, but she wouldn't do it. She would wait for the right moment when all the feelings had passed. Then she would expose him without any hope of reconciliation, and she could resist his manipulations. When he came with flowers, begging her to come back, she could resist. The next day, while she was at work, her thoughts were occupied with the fact that her husband was cheating on her. She didn't know how to handle the situation. Moreover, she didn't know how to tell her colleague and friend. When they went to the mall for lunch at the food court, she felt pressure from her friend. In the end, her friend could see that she was worried about something, and she couldn't get through to her. When Alice turned her head, she was stunned. Right in front of her was her husband's lover, hugging some guy. Alice immediately understood that they were in a long-term relationship, but decided to have some fun on the side. What surprised her the most was that they met in this large city precisely here. Alice went home and was so upset and broken that she almost immediately fell asleep. When she woke up next, she was just amazed. She felt a cold piercing through her. She opened her eyes and saw nothing but a white canvas. It was cold, silent. The sounds of refrigerators working could be heard. She realized she was in the morgue. She was so frightened that she wanted to scream. But she froze. Someone entered the morgue. Now the conversation echoed throughout the room. "I've already paid for everything. Stop dragging this out," her husband said. Alice was stunned when she heard him. But she didn't expect him to say what he did. "I said, just cremate her quickly before she wakes up, and that's it. It seems I've already paid for everything. Why start all this again now? You told me you'd take care of everything without unnecessary questions. And you didn't mention that she would be alive," another person quickly replied. Alice was shocked by what her husband said. They were talking about what horrified her. They wanted to cremate her alive. She needed to stand up, grab any scalpel, defend herself, break free from here. But she couldn't do it. Fear paralyzed her. She felt trembling all over. Her legs were shaking, and her hands, which were tied to the gurney, felt the cold surface. She needed to pretend to be dead. At least that was the best option. She was scared. So scared that she couldn't even feel her own heartbeat. What does it matter? She won't wake up, burn her, and that's it. I need to wrap everything up today, otherwise I won't have time with all these documents. Lord, is it really that difficult to do? Gregory said. He got so angry that it immediately changed the tone of his voice. Alice, who had lived with him for so many years, could now determine the intensity of his anger by the tone alone. Then leave. I won't start the furnace in your presence. I told you to bring her by 9. We'll toss her in the incinerator right away. And you brought her 2 hours later. It's not a microwave here. It will immediately be known that someone set it on fire. Smoke will come out. Did you even think about it? You messed up, and I'm to blame. I'll give her an injection. She'll sleep until morning. Tomorrow we'll have a new batch, and we'll incinerate her along with the rest, another voice said. Fine, let it be. I'll come for the ashes tomorrow. I'll scatter them somewhere in the river so that no one ever finds them. Then the next payment tomorrow, he said. Then, turning abruptly, he left. The iron door closed immediately. Alice felt her whole body still shaking. When the doctor approached her, he immediately realized that she had already regained consciousness. She couldn't say anything, as if all the words were stuck in her throat. Could they really put her in the furnace? Was she so weakened by fear that she couldn't resist? Do you hear me? If you do, nod, the doctor said, and she nodded. The white sheet covering her had formed an ugly fold. Listen to me carefully. I need to roll you out now, take you down the corridor. There are several large windows in the corridor. I'll give you a command, and you'll hold your breath. It's crucial right now. Your husband must see that you're dead, understand? Then I'll turn down the corridor, and we'll get outside. There's no time to elaborate now, the doctor said. He changed the sheet. There was already drool on the previous one because Alice was terribly nervous. When the doctor spoke, she suddenly felt somewhat safe. Don't worry, no one will start the furnace. I'll help you get out. Someone is already waiting for you, he said. She looked at him, not understanding why he was helping her. But she couldn't ask anything now. When he rolled her out, giving her commands, and she held her breath. They turned, and he told her she could breathe normally. When she felt that the cold became much more intense, she felt nauseous. She leaned over the edge of the gurney, and nerves overwhelmed her. She immediately leaned back. He helped her up, gave her some medicine. She looked closely at what he handed her. He poisoned you severely. You'll feel bad for a long time. Take 2 tablets in the morning and evening. That's it, goodbye, the doctor said. He put her in the car, and she, nervously looking around, didn't resist. She was trembling. The car jerked off the spot. She lay down on the back seat, as she was told, and waited for when she could get up. She was so nervous, felt so bad that she didn't even realize how she fell asleep. The next time she opened her eyes, dawn was breaking. But when she looked at the driver, she wanted to scream. Oh my God! Stacy! Stacy, is that you? She said joyfully. She hugged her from behind, and the young woman who was behind the wheel smiled at her. Wait, now we'll stop at the gas station, get some food, and you'll switch to the front seat. What are you talking about? You'll strangle me. Stacy laughed. When they stopped at the gas station, a pleasant feeling appeared that everything would be fine. Alice felt that her life was changing significantly. But she had a persistent feeling that she had escaped only by chance. She still didn't understand how her husband, despite how he treated her, wanted to cremate her alive. How did you get involved in all this conspiracy? Alice wondered. We'll have time to chat later. Here, take it, buy some gummy bears, chips, whatever. We have a long way to go. I'll wait for you here. I need to check the car, Stacy said. Alice did everything. When she returned to the car, she felt safe again. She didn't understand where this feeling came from. If her husband wanted to cremate her alive, he could easily reach her anywhere. On the contrary, she should have been afraid of every shadow. But right now, she didn't have that feeling. They got back in the car, and when the car started moving, the sense of security only intensified. Alice looked around. The landscape surrounding the road was unfamiliar. These were some dry fields, black soil, small plantations. She couldn't figure out exactly where they were. It seemed to her that she would fall out of reality. She continued taking the pills the doctor gave her, but her condition gradually improved. "It turns out I just happened to be a victim in this story," Stacy said. "I came from abroad because I had problems with my documents. I realized I couldn't stay in the relationship I was in. I decided to come back for good. I wanted to find you because I missed you so much. But when I approached your house, I saw your husband putting some girl into the car. I immediately knew something was wrong here." Her friend slowed down. She was stopped by a police officer who checked their documents. When Alice took out her documents, she was stunned to see a completely different surname and patronymic. She still couldn't understand what was happening. Well, at least her name remained. When Stacy returned to the car, Alice looked at her with suspicion. But she didn't interrupt. She wanted to hear the whole story from beginning to end, no matter how difficult it might be. "Have you seen the documents? So, from now on, I'm no longer Stacy, I'm Tammy. So, call me that. Anyway, when I followed your husband, I realized he wasn't just having an affair. That girl he was with was also married. And it so happened that when I parked the car, he didn't see me. That's when I overheard their plan. Both he and his girl wanted to cremate their spouses, then declare them missing. And when the court declares them dead, they take over their property," Tammy said. "So, they wanted to burn us alive just to take over the apartments?" Alice exclaimed. "I was shocked myself, I was shaking. I still can't believe all this happened right before my eyes. I continued following your husband and found out which specific doctor he had made a deal with. From there, I took care of things as best as I could. I warned that girl's husband, I overpaid the doctor, and I got us new documents. Of course, I could have stayed with the old ones, but then he could find you," Tammy explained. Silence hung in the air again. The luxury car moved slowly on the road, following behind other vehicles. There seemed to be an accident or roadwork up ahead. The cars were moving slowly, and it made them uneasy. Alice felt herself starting to shake. "Don't worry, all these documents are just precautions. Consider that you and I have just decided to start fresh. Remember when we used to dream of living together? So, now we'll live together like sisters. We'll have our own kind of sisterhood," Tammy said, smiling. "I'm also glad I finally got rid of that awful name. Everything will be fine, don't worry." Tammy placed her hand on her friend's knee, and the trembling immediately stopped. Alice didn't know how to thank her friend. She cried because she felt she had miraculously escaped some horrible fate. She felt uneasy realizing that she might not have made it through this morning. They could have put her in the furnace while she was still alive, and it would have all been over. And for what? Just so her husband could finally acquire that spacious apartment in the city? Yes, and with his mistress. As they say, every creature has its pair. We have a home, a place to live. I'll teach you how to work online. We'll have a good life together, believe me. And I have a mountain of dirt on your husband. If he does show up, I'll just turn him into the police with all the details. You don't have to worry, everything is finally over now," Tammy concluded. For the first time, Alice breathed a sigh of relief. Tammy had never lied to her. If Tammy said everything was okay, than it was. She could really relax now and wait for her new life. Everything else was unimportant. She just wanted to get as far away from the city where she was unhappy as possible. They would have a new home, a new job, a new life. She would forever be grateful to her beloved friend, whom she lost touch with because of her husband. They really felt like sisters now, especially when united in their pursuit of a new life. When the road finally came to an end, they turned into a beautiful cottage settlement. Alice stood up in her seat, trying to stretch her head as much as possible. They stopped near a beautiful cottage, and Tammy parked the car in the yard. The surroundings were amazingly beautiful. And there, just a few hundred meters away, the sea sparkled. It wasn't frozen, it was a beautiful cold expanse. "Is this really our home?" she asked, looking at the sea from the balcony. "Yes, my dear, now we'll live here," Tammy said. She was glad to see that her friend liked everything. Tammy was terrified to imagine what Alice had been through. Gregory paced around the apartment, not knowing what to do. He was shaking. The shaking prevented him from concentrating. He had already spent too much time in lawyers' offices, spent too much money on consultations, and still couldn't claim the inheritance. It irritated him that the apartment he so desperately wanted was now sealed. He couldn't just get it. He couldn't even live there. "I knew you wouldn't succeed. I knew you were useless," Sarah said, crossing her arms. "Shut up. You couldn't keep yours either. He just left you with nothing," he snapped at his lover. "That was your responsibility. You promised me you would handle everything perfectly. Don't shift the blame onto me. You took on this burden, and what good has it done?" she yelled. He understood that calming her down in such a mood was impossible. He became even more frustrated because he had no influence over the situation. "My head hurts because of you. Sick of your constant yelling, I tell you," he said calmly. She just rolled her eyes, went into the kitchen, and he heard the kettle being put on. She took out a coffee jar, and he heard the small spoon touching the glass jar. His plan seemed perfect to him. It seemed like he would do everything right, but he couldn't do anything about it. At the same time, his lover stood in the kitchen, making coffee and contemplating whether she should tell her lover that she was pregnant but not with his child. She was 100% sure it wasn't his because the timelines didn't match. She was pregnant with another lover's child but wasn't sure if she could be happy with him. Now, she didn't even know whom to choose between the two. She felt sick. How could she have made such a mistake? "Listen, lend me some money," he told her. And she scoffed. He realized he wouldn't get any money from her. "Why should I lend you anything? I should be grateful to my ex-husband for leaving me with at least an account. Of course, it won't last for 10 years, but at least for a while to get by. You're a man, you should earn," she mocked. She took a sip and closed her eyes. He understood that their relationship was falling apart. He killed his own wife for this woman, ordered her cremation to get the apartment and live happily together. And now, everything turned out to be in vain. Moreover, he realized that even mocking his wife, he was happier with her. Gregory understood that he missed everything in his life. It hurt to think that he was left without an apartment, without money, without a job. "I knew you were useless," she repeated. Nowadays, real men are a rarity. Mostly just mama's boys who think women owe them everything. A woman should be the keeper of the home, she mimicked her mother's voice. Then, a man should plow, earn, and provide for the family. Enough. "Shut up," he said. He took his jacket and got into the car. He left behind the apartment building, and just drove to his friend. It seemed to him that everything around disappeared. He was almost nauseous from nerves. He understood that it was over, that he missed everything. How could such a perfect plan fail? How could he not get the apartment after his ex-wife's absence? When he arrived at his friend's place, he realized his friend wasn't home. Without a choice, he returned home. He felt sick. "Let's go to the sea, take a trip in our car, stay in some small hotel." "Relax," he suggested. She nodded. "I feel everything is falling apart, but I don't want anything. Let's finish it all. Just go, relax, swim. Everything is so tiresome. I don't even understand which thoughts are rational and which are just fatigue," he said. She agreed. Literally, a few days later, they were on their way to the sea. They talked a lot on the road, discussing how they could change their lives and how they could live without each other. He understood that this conversation would lead to nothing good, but still didn't want to talk about anything else. "Maybe we can come up with something after all. Let's sell the car, and you can start a business," she suggested. "I'm not at the age or with the looks to settle for less, you know. I want to live well. I want to live off a man. I want to be married. Do you understand me? I don't want to work my entire life if there's a man who should be doing it. I'll clean, cook, fulfill all his whims, but in return, I want to be provided for." "Understand?" she said. He understood her, but he didn't want to talk about it. They stopped near a small hotel, checked in, and almost immediately went to the sea. On the same day, they had their first major quarrel in the new place. Angry, he just left, drove to a shopping center, left the car there because he wanted to have a snack. He went to the third floor but suddenly froze. With his own eyes, he saw his ex-wife, the one they had cremated. He held her ashes in his hands. He witnessed her being taken towards the furnace. And now, looking at her beautiful young face, he felt everything inside him twist. "Alice," he shouted. She turned towards him but pretended not to recognize him. She was talking to some man, and he also noticed him now. He pointed at himself, but Alice shook her head negatively. He approached, grabbed her hand, but she immediately pulled hers away. She looked at him as if she didn't know him at all. She didn't resemble Alice, she was Alice. He fell to his knees out of fear, out of the horror that engulfed him. "Lord, Alice. Forgive me, Alice. How is this possible?" he exclaimed. Everyone around started looking at them. "Unbelievable, they're letting in some junkies," a voice in the crowd said. "Mister, I'm not called Alice. You got something mixed up." She walked away from him, and the security guard, who also seemed to realize something was wrong, approached them. But by that time, Gregory had already lost it. He shouted, rushed at her, but he was immediately restrained. They took him out of the shopping center. The police arrived. When they handed him over to the police, he just thought they would let him go. He did have a conversation with them. But in the end, they released him after a drug test. When he came out, he quickly went back to the hotel. And when he arrived there, when he told everything to his lover, she burst into laughter. "Are you an idiot? Oh, my God. Got involved with an idiot," Sarah said, continuing to laugh. "I thought it was time to part with you. You seem to be insane." "Idiot. Use your head. If she were alive, she would have been found by now. The police would have found her, the courts would have started. Don't you understand?" He froze. His lover's words made sense, but he stopped feeling the ground beneath his feet. He had seen Alice with his own eyes. He saw her insanely green eyes, saw her dark chestnut hair, he saw her freckles on her nose. She was like a part of his past. It was scary to realize that he missed her. After this situation, everything around him got worse, and his relationship with his lover deteriorated. He noticed that she began hiding her phone, talking to someone in secret, and everything was spiraling out of control. But what affected him much more was his desire to find Alice. The thought that he committed a crime, and she was still alive, haunted him. And on the very day when they were supposed to leave the hotel, he wanted to return to the same shopping center. He circled it from top to bottom, but didn't meet her again. Yes, it was silly to hope that he would encounter her again. Most likely, she would now hide, and he would never be able to find her. But each time his lover told him it was his inflamed imagination, he didn't listen to her. He was sure he saw Alice. And now, as he sat in the car, it seemed like everything around him shut down. He reached into the glove compartment for documents and suddenly saw a thick envelope. "You're meddling again, huh? Leave us alone. If you try to find her or mention her name anywhere, I'll crush you to powder. I'm attaching a copy of evidence, and believe me, this is only a fifth. If by chance you interfere in her life and decide that you have the right to ruin everything, I'll hand all of this to the police. And you'll rot in prison. With love, your guardian angel." The note was at least strange. But when he opened the package inside, he was simply stunned. Fingerprints, evidence that he bought poison. Even a record of his conversation with a doctor. He was so scared that all of this would surface that he burned it all. And now, as he drove home with his lover, he was afraid to even talk to her about it. He was even afraid to think that someone got into his car without his knowledge, and he didn't even know about it. "You know, I thought about it, and you were right. Maybe I just imagined it all. I'm just scared that some evidence will come up, and I'll end up in prison. So, I'm constantly on edge. And you know what? Let's do it. We'll sell the car. I'll start my own business. You're already pregnant. We'll have a child, and it's time to take responsibility," he said. "I'm glad you listened to me. It's been 2 years already. Believe me, if there were any evidence, it would have surfaced by now. So, there's nothing to worry about," she said. They had a pleasant conversation all the way home. He felt that she had forgiven him, and it made him feel much lighter. He didn't love her, didn't want to be with her, but he also didn't want to be alone. Besides, when she gives birth, she will be tied to him, no matter how he treated her. From the moment he returned home, life became strange. He didn't sell the car, didn't start a business. He spent entire days lying on the couch, doing nothing, claiming he was contemplating how to start a business. Apparently, she had grown tired of waiting for him to take some action. She came home, rang the doorbell. When he opened the door, he saw another man standing behind her. At first, he didn't understand what was happening, but gradually it dawned on him. He got so angry that his brain seemed to shut off. He wanted to attack the man, but when he realized that such a sturdy guy was not someone he could handle, he backed off. "I'm not pregnant with your child. I forged the documents to align the due dates. Here are the real documents with the hospital's seal. So, I'm not pregnant with your child. I just wanted to give our relationship a chance. But I don't want to live in poverty with someone who can't even lift his backside off the couch. So, I'm just packing my things and leaving," she said calmly. Without extra words, she simply gathered her things and left. And he couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't stop her, couldn't even talk. Moreover, he couldn't even resist this sturdy guy. It angered him, but he couldn't release the anger. It was over, he lost everything. There was no wife, no lover, no money, no job. He fell to his knees in the middle of the apartment he rented with his lover's money and cried. Meanwhile, Alice was in the kitchen, laughing. She and Tammy were baking a big apple pie together. They chatted, laughed, and often recalled situations from their past. So much time had passed since her husband almost burned her alive, and Alice had completely calmed down. Therefore, when she saw him, she could calmly stand up to him. She knew Tammy would provide him with evidence to make him back off. Believe me, everything in this life always comes back like a boomerang. Sometimes it seems like everything is wrong. It seems like there's no justice in this life. Believe me, justice kicks in exactly when it's needed. So, it's not surprising that he lost everything, Tammy said when the conversation turned to her ex-husband. Alice nodded in agreement because she felt the same. You know, I sometimes think that everything in this life happens for the best. However scary it was for me in the morgue, however terrible and difficult my relationships were, now I am truly happy. It's scary to think about how everything could have gone wrong back then. I thought my life would be a never-ending nightmare, but everything changed. And now, living together with you, having this beautiful house by the sea, I am just insanely grateful to you, she said with a smile. I bought this house long before I came back. I was already thinking about taking you out of your unhappy marriage, that we would live together. And it turned out that this house became not just a refuge, but our real fortress. That's why we're friends. That's why we're sisters. Tammy smiled. Alice felt genuinely happy. She woke up every morning with pleasure, worked with pleasure, walked by the sea, and just spent time with her beloved friend. Her entire life became a continuous happiness. If someone had told her a few years ago that she would be living happily in just a few years, she would never have believed it. But everything happened exactly as it should. She got rid of those heavy relationships, escaped a terrible death, and most importantly, she finally managed to love herself and the life that surrounded her.